ever get to the end of the day exhausted and think, what did I even do today? Because nothing major actually happened. You didn't climb a mountain. You didn't run a marathon. You didn't save a village from a natural disaster. But somehow your brain is fried. Your body is tired. Your patience is gone. And the thought of making one more decision feels personally offensive. That is probably not random. That is invisible labor. And invisible labor will wear you out because it hides inside all of the little things nobody counts, right? Remembering, planning, scheduling, rescheduling, following up, checking, tracking, deciding, noticing what's missing, noticing what's almost out, noticing what is due, noticing what everybody else somehow didn't notice. That's labor. A lot of us are tired because our lives are full of work that nobody claps for, nobody sees, and nobody treats like real work until it doesn't get done. So today, we're talking about the invisible labor of adulthood and why it is probably kicking your ass, and how to stop pretending the small stuff is small when it keeps draining your whole nervous system. Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kiara Ivy, aka Kiara the Concrete Rose, aka your lifestyle design bestie. And around here, we talk about lifestyle design, adulting, soft life strategy, and personal growth. And today's conversation comes from my book, Adulting is Ghetto, specifically the chapter called The Invisible Labor is Kicking Your Ass. Okay. And honestly, this is one of those chapters that I feel like every grown woman needs to sit with for a second, because so much of adulthood is not one dramatic crisis, right? It is maintenance. It is the constant behind the scenes work of keeping a life running. And the reason so many of us feel tired when nothing is technically wrong is because we're managing a ridiculous amount of invisible labor and calling it normal. So there's a part in Adulting is Ghetto where I talk about how adult life is made up of bills and groceries and laundry and paperwork and appointments and emails and follow ups, errands, meal planning, cleaning, canceling, rebooking, finding the password, reading the fine print, calling customer service, sitting on hold, explaining yourself over and over again, and then doing it all over next week. That's labor. That's invisible labor. And if that list alone made you tired, exactly, that's the point. The exhausting thing about invisible labor is that most of it does not look impressive from the outside, right? Nobody looks at you and says, wow, congratulations on remembering the toilet paper was almost gone before it became a household emergency, right? Nobody throws a party because you scheduled the dentist appointment, returned the package, paid the bill, checked the calendar, right? Nobody is clapping for the fact that you followed up on the email and remembered that the chicken needed to be thawed before dinner, right? But that work still takes something from you. It takes attention. It takes decision making. It takes emotional regulation. It takes memory and planning and the ability to constantly scan your life for what needs to be handled, right? That scanning is exhausting because invisible labor is not always the task itself. Sometimes it's the remembering that the task exists. It is not just buying groceries. It's not noticing what's low, thinking about what you're going to eat, checking the budget, making, the list, planning when to go, bringing the groceries home, right? It's not just paying a bill. It's knowing when it's due, knowing which account the money is coming from, making sure the money is there, right? Watching the confirmation and mentally tracking what else is still coming out. It's not just laundry, it's noticing what needs to be washed, deciding when to wash it, remembering to move it, fold it, put it away, accepting the emotional reality of laundry never actually being a finished thing. It's just gonna keep coming. It just takes brief naps, basically. That's what nobody counts though. And when nobody counts it, we start underestimating how much we're carrying. A lot of the invisible labor gets dismissed because each task seems small on its own, right? Oh, it's just one email, one errand, one appointment, one bill, one text to answer, one return to make. But adulthood is never just one thing. It's the pile up. It's the compound effect of little things that repeat forever with no applause and no real finish line. That's why you can have a normal week and still feel exhausted. Nothing dramatic had to happen. You may just be carrying too many open loops. An open loop is anything your brain knows is not fully handled. Each open loop takes up a tiny bit of mental space, and enough tiny things will turn your brain into a cluttered junk drawer. That's why invisible labor can make your whole life feel louder. Your body may be sitting down, but your mind is still running around with a clipboard trying to keep the entire operation from falling apart. The other piece people miss is that invisible labor is not just logistical, it's emotional. It's not just remembering the task, it's managing your feelings about the task. Try not to spiral when the bill is higher than expected. Try not to snap when the customer service puts you on hold for 38 minutes and then transfer you to the wrong department, right? Try not to avoid the email because you already feel behind, and try not to feel guilty because the house is messy again. Try not to shut down because everything feels like it's too much. That's emotional labor. And for a lot of women, there's also the labor of managing other people's comfort, needs, schedules, feelings, expectations, remembering birthdays, planning gatherings, keeping up with family updates, checking on people, coordinating plans, noticing when somebody is off, being the default emotional support human, making sure nobody feels forgotten while you're over here forgetting your damn self. That adds up, especially if you're the strong friend, the eldest daughter, the default planner, the person everybody comes to, the one who always just knows what needs to be done. And this is where resentment can quietly grow, not because you don't love people, but because being the only person who notices everything is exhausting. And sometimes you're not tired because you did too much physical work. You're tired because you have been mentally managing too much invisible work. Invisible labor also creates this constant feeling of being behind because maintenance never stays done, right? You clean, it's going to get messy again. You buy groceries, the food is going to disappear or expire again. You might go through and answer emails, a dozen more are going to come in within the next couple of days. You do the laundry, there will be another pile waiting for you when you're done. You pay bills, and more bills gather in the distance like villains in a sequel. Nothing is ever just fully done. And if you do not have systems, margin, support, some kind of rhythm, the invisible labor of your life becomes a never ending background job. That's why a lot of people feel like they're always catching up. They're not lazy. They're just living inside a life that requires constant upkeep, and they have not built enough support around the upkeep, right? This is also why rest can feel really difficult, because even when you sit down, your brain is still whispering, do not forget that email. Don't forget the laundry. Don't forget this and that and this and that, right? How are you supposed to relax when your mind is running a full operations department? That is not rest. You can't rest like that. The shift here is simple, but it's also important. You have to start respecting invisible labor as real labor. Because if you minimize the work, you'll underestimate the support you need. That is where a lot of us get stuck. We keep telling ourselves it's just a few little things. But if those things are draining your attention, creating stress, stealing your peace, making you feel behind all the time, then that's not just a little impact. They may be small tasks, but they're carrying a big load. Respecting the labor does not mean becoming dramatic about every responsibility. It just means telling the truth about what it actually takes to keep your life running. It means you stop expecting yourself to hold everything in your head. It means that you stop acting shocked that you're tired when your brain has been tracking 47 open loops since breakfast. Here's the practical reset. Make a list called the things keeping my life running. Okay. Not your dream goals, not your someday projects, not your big plans, just the regular stuff: bills, groceries, laundry, cleaning, emails, prescriptions, returns, forms, things like that. Okay. Write down everything you can think of and do not judge the list. The point is not to shame yourself. The point is to finally see the work. Then circle the three things that drain you the most, not the three things that sound the most responsible, the three things that are actually wearing you out. Those are the first targets for support. Maybe one needs a system, maybe one needs an automation of some sort, maybe one needs to be simplified, maybe you need to bring someone in your house in on one of them, maybe something needs to be delegated to, you know, somebody on your team. Maybe one needs to happen less often. The goal is not to carry the invisible labor better. The goal is to actually make it visible enough to manage it differently. Okay, so for example, if meal planning is draining you, the answer may not be a complicated new food system with 22 recipes and a laminated grocery binder, right? Maybe the answer is just 5 default meals that you really don't get tired of, that you could continue just to buy on repeat, and then you can explore different things on the weekends, right? But that's it. Just 5 meals that you know how to make, that you love to eat, that they never go bad. They never expire, right? Because you always end up eating them. If email is draining you, maybe the answer is 1 email check-in window instead of just letting your inbox interrupt your whole day like it pays rent. No, no more of that. Okay? We are not trying to make life perfect. We're trying to reduce the background noise, because the background noise is what is wearing so many of us out. So if you've been feeling exhausted and can't explain why, I want you to stop assuming the problem is that you're weak or undisciplined. Look at the invisible labor. Look at the remembering, the deciding, the tracking, the planning, the emotional regulation, the follow up, the maintenance, the mental tasks. A lot of you are tired. A lot of your tired makes sense when you finally count what your life has been asking you to carry. And once you count it, you can't, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you count it, you can support it. I wrote Adulting is Ghetto for this exact kind of behind the scenes exhaustion. And I'll link it below if you want the full framework. The book goes deeper into, invisible labor, adulting avatars, the chaos tax, the steady method, and all of that, because I'm really trying to help us design a lifestyle that is in alignment with our personality, our passions, and our purpose, and one that feels fully supported for the woman we're trying to become. So tell me in the comments, what invisible labor is kicking your ass right now? Is it meals? Is it bills, cleaning, family coordination, all of the above? Drop it below. And if this resonated with you, please like it, subscribe, and stick around, because I want us to design our best lives together.